This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar. For more information, visit our website. Tonight I'm making a delicious white bean soup with a spinach pistou on top. Pistou is a great sauce, much like pesto, but tonight instead of using basil, I'm going to be using spinach and some fresh parsley, and it adds a wonderful flavor to this soup. Now for this soup, we're going to be using navy beans, which is a small little white bean, and they're found dried. So we can't just put them in the pot like this. We have to rehydrate them, and one of the ways you can do it is with a quick soak, and that's what I want to show you how to do today. I'm going to start by measuring out 2 cups of my navy beans, and I have a medium-sized saucepan that I'm going to place them in, and then I want to take enough water to cover the beans with. Now you'll know you have enough water when you see most of the beans submerged. If there's a few floating on the top, that's okay. Now I'm going to bring the pot over to the stove and put it on a high heat because I want to bring it to boil. And once the beans come to boil, I'm going to put a lid on them and move them off the heat and let them sit for 1 hour. Now after an hour, I'm going to take and pour these through a strainer. So I want to get all that liquid out. And I'm just going to set it right here back in my pot until I'm ready to put them in my soup. And now we're going to start getting the base of our soup ready. I'm going to start by chopping up 4 slices of bacon. Now I'm using a thick sliced bacon, but you can use whatever you have on hand. And you are going to want to cut your bacon on a separate board from what we cut the vegetables on. And the reason being is since the bacon is not cooked, we don't want to contaminate that with our vegetables. So I'm going to use a separate knife. And when I chop up bacon, I like for the bacon to be really cold. If it warms up too much, it can be kind of difficult to chop. I'm going to cut it in half, and then each half I'm going to cut it lengthwise. And then when I turn it, I run my knife through it and I get this nice chop. Now once the bacon is chopped, I'm just going to set this to the side and I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'll get the vegetables ready. I have 3 stalks of celery that I've cut in half, and then I'm going to take each half and slice it in half down the middle, and then I'll gather them together and run my knife through them just to make sort of a medium chop. And then I'll set this to the side of my board. And I have 1 onion, and I'm going to cut it in half, and then with each half I'm going to cut a couple of slices horizontally through it, and then run some slices down it, and then I'll run my blade through it. And when you do that, you end up making this nice medium chop like this. So I'm going to do that with the whole onion, and I'll just move that over to the celery. And we'll go over to the stove and start cooking our bacon. I have my big soup pot over here, and I've turned my heat on medium-high, and I'm going to start browning the bacon. Now once the bacon is nicely browned, we'll add our onions and our celery. And I'm going to let this cook for about 5 minutes. Next I'm going to add 10 cups of chicken broth and our navy beans. I'm going to stir this, turn the heat up to high, and I want to bring this to boil. So once the soup comes to boil like this, I'm going to turn the heat down to low, and I'm going to put the lid on, but I'm going to leave it a little bit at a jar, and I'm going to let this simmer for 30 minutes. Now while the beans and the vegetables and broth are cooking, I'm going to open up a 15-ounce can of some diced tomatoes, and I'm going to leave it with the juice and everything. And then I got just a handful of parsley out of the garden, and I'm going to chop this up. Now once I've done a rough chop, I am going to go back and mince it even finer. Now I'm going to take the lid off, put in the can of tomatoes and the parsley. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt, some black pepper, and give that a stir. Then I'll put the lid back on again, add a jar, and I'll let this cook for another hour. Now while the soup is cooking, I'm going to be making a little spinach pistou that we can spoon on the top when we serve it. Now pistou is very much like pesto, except for that pesto is Italian and pistou is French. Now traditionally pistou is made with basil leaves, but I'm going to do a little bit different thing today. I'm going to be using spinach. So in my little food processor, I have taken a half a cup of, this is actually frozen spinach that I've defrosted, and I'm going to put that into my food processor here. And to that, I'm going to add 2 cloves of minced garlic. I have another little handful of parsley. It's about 1/4 cup. I'm just going to give this a rough chop and put that in. A little bit of salt. I have a fresh lemon out of the garden, so I'm going to measure out 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then I'm going to grind this up until it's nice and smooth. And you can see when it's done, it's really nice and thick, just like this. I'm going to place this in a little bowl until I'm ready to serve it. Now, if you happen to have some fresh spinach leaves in your garden, you could absolutely use that. I would pack them really, really tightly into the 1/2 cup measuring cup and then give them a little bit of a rough chop before I put them into the little food processor. Now when you bring the soup off the stove, do make sure to test it. You want to make sure the beans are tender and that you have enough salt and pepper to your liking. And then when you're ready to serve, you'll ladle it into your bowl and then top it with a little spoonful of your spinach pistou. Well, I hope you'll give this white bean soup a try at home. It's really delicious and great on a cold night. If you do want the recipe, just go to our website, go to the Soups On show notes, I'll have it there for you. And if you do make it at home, send me a photo because then I can send you the soup badge. Make sure to visit us on Facebook, and if you have any ideas or questions for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.